Welcome everyone to Politically High Tech with your host, Elias. I have a newcomer here, and look, I've talked about AI exhaustive amount of times, but we're gonna take it a different angle, and because what I normally talk about is the worker's perspective about how they gotta master AI skills just to be relevant to the job market. This one here, we're gonna focus more on the leadership, business owners or CEOs, what have you. I want to include the small businesses as well. I'm sure someone could do that, could implement it. And I think the only advantage I'll say about small businesses, if you execute it right, you can actually be more nimble about it. While big businesses, it will take some time. It's larger, and you got to get more buy-in and all that. So, with that out of the way, we're going to focus more on AI implementation and about how it can be successful and how a lot of businesses are getting it wrong. Because we're in the age of AI is evolving so quickly, it already surpassed human capability of adapting real quick. So we're gonna just talk about that stuff. It's like ships. A lot of them don't know how AI can be implemented right. And thank goodness we have someone here who's going to solve that problem. We have Hunter Jensen here, and trust me, he is the man for the job because after reading I'll say his pager, because look, I'm not gonna say biography because it could be much longer than that. I'm sure he has a lot more accomplishments. I'm just scratching the surface here. He has over 20 years of experience. He even works with Fortune 500 companies. Do you need more convincing? Like some Microsoft, Force, even IMAX. You heard of these names before, right? These are not exactly startup companies that you don't know who the heck they are. So he's gonna give us some tips about AI implementation and especially how leadership could do it. So welcome, Hunter. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Elias.
So this is why I like to get started. What do you want the listeners and the viewers to know about you before we get started?
Sure. So founder CEO, a company called Barefoot Solutions, right? Custom software development shop. Been doing that for over 20 years. Kind of riding the wave of digital technology. Started off building WordPress websites, got into mobile apps very, very early. We had one of the first 100 apps in the App Store once it came online. Then came, the Internet of Things and connected devices and smart medical devices and all that. Then came blockchain and crypto, and that was a wild ride. And then came data science. And these tend to come in like 4-year cycles. We've followed that trend, the trends in technology, but now we have generative AI. So we've been doing machine learning and like traditional AI for a decade, right? But this is different. This time is very different, to the point where, it's even put my entire business model at threat. And we've had to very drastically shift our business model and actually shift from a services company to a product company that's specifically focused around deploying AI at mid-market companies and small businesses. Called Compass is the name of our product. So I've been in this for a while now, seen a lot of kind of mistakes get made a lot of mistakes myself, but have a much better understanding of what it might take to deploy, specifically generative AI at the organizational level, and in terms of leadership. And like you said, that I think that's probably what we're going to talk about today. So I'll leave it there.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, what he's really alluding to is, he had to shift his entire business model. What if Blockbuster did that, right? Some shift. Instead of just a video rental store, it could have been a streaming platform just like Netflix. Oh, Netflix took that. Look, they're still relevant. It's still big. Blockbuster, they only been reduced to one store somewhere in Oregon. I forget where, but that's what you get for not adapting. The price is just, the consequences are just dire, just to put it mildly, okay? So we don't want other businesses becoming like Blockbuster, or even worse, just completely gone. At least Blockbuster had a miracle to keep one little store there, but it could be much worse. And Kodak too. You don't hear about Kodak anymore. One time it used to be a big, big photo company. I remember as a kid, Kodak was everywhere. Kodak, but they're gone.
Yep, they fell asleep at the wheel on digital cameras, and the rest is history. Like, to touch on that a little bit, um, I like to say that custom software development is a bit of a canary in the coal mine. Um, I'm in the business of selling engineering time, right? Hours. We bill by the hour. And what used to take 100 hours now takes like one. And you might not even need an engineer to do it. And what does that mean for my business model, right? Do I only get 1% of the revenue? Like it's an existential threat. And it happened to my industry first. It's not coming, it's already here. I'm already losing projects and all the rest of it to vibe coders that can do things for 5% of the 10% of the cost. It's been happening all year. And the reason it happened to us first, this is just my theory, is that all the people working on generative AI are programmers. They write code. And so it was the obvious use case, for large language models, right? They're language models. We write in programming languages. And in fact, they're a lot easier to deal with than like English, for example, which has all sorts of weird rules and inconsistencies and all the rest of it. So it started with code, but it's coming for other industries next, right? Think about professional services as an example. Lawyers, they bill by the hour too. All they do is read and write. Not all they do is read and write. They think, they read, they write. That's a large part of their job. And we now have this incredible tool that will make them, give them the ability to produce much quicker than they used to. And if you're still billing by the hour, by the end of next year, you're an attorney, you're in a lot of trouble for the same reason that we at Barefoot Solutions were in a lot of trouble, which is why, thankfully we saw the writing on the wall and, went heads down and built a product and shifted our whole business model to not go the way of the Blockbusters and the Kodaks, but actually shift with the times. And rather than be afraid of the threat, actually find the massive opportunity in all of this disruption and change. And so that's, to me, like when you're leading a business, you got to skate where the puck is going. That old like Gretzky quote. You really have to be on your toes here and innovate when the circumstances require it. And right now, that's where we're at.
No, yeah, and that is a good time to that question because we don't want another Blockbuster and Kodak. Blockbuster is on life support to be more precise, but Kodak dead as a business dead. Okay, you don't want to be another Kodak. This is why I mentioned these examples. You want to be Netflix, I guess. Yeah, they're doing well. They continue to grow. They deal with challenges, but it looks like they overcome them. So you want to be more like Netflix, okay? And
or if you're already in Netflix was a startup that disrupted the incumbents, and that's certainly something that startups should be thinking hard about. But if you're already there and you've been in business for 20 years, you need to start thinking about innovating. You need to be more like Amazon, right? Amazon's in the cloud computing business, and they started off as an e-commerce marketplace, right? They still have the biggest e-commerce marketplace, but a large portion of their revenue is coming from their cloud compute, from AWS, right? And so they innovated and saw the need for something like that. And this e-commerce company somehow managed to become the largest cloud compute provider in the US, right? And so I think that's an even better example of what like existing owners and leadership need to be thinking about is how do we innovate to stay relevant? How do we be Amazon and not Blockbuster?
You're not going to get an argument from me on that one. Yeah, if you want, especially for the established business. Yep, follow the Amazon playbook. Just continue that hunger for growth and solve problems. Right? Don't stay stagnant. Oh, we got it. We don't need it. Yeah, we've been doing it for 50 years. Why should we change? Well, that's why these businesses they got taken down because of that mindset. So, alrighty then. So my question is, what are the most common mistakes business leaders make when it comes to just implementing AI? I'm sure you got a lot, but what are the most common ones?
Yeah, there are a lot. But I'll tell you the biggest one. And this is something I encounter almost every single time I start consulting with a new business. They have this vision that we are going to teach a model everything about their business. And it's going to be like an oracle and it can answer any question. It can solve any problem. It can do anything. That is not how we need to be thinking about this, right? One, the technology is not there yet. But two, more importantly, is the only person that would be able to use a model like that would be the CEO. Because if it has all of my HR records in there, how do we make sure that it doesn't give out sensitive HR information to the wrong person? You cannot trust these models to do that, right? It's about access control. Who gets what? And if you think you're going to teach a model everything and then trust it to handle access control, you're going to fail. And it might be catastrophic if a lot of sensitive data actually gets out to either your customers or to your employees. You've got a huge problem on your hands, right? So that to me is the biggest misconception, is that they think there's going to be this, know-it-all model that has everything, that knows everything in the business. That's not the right way to be thinking about it. So I'd say that's probably the biggest mistake that I see from leadership. I think you go a level or two down that actually understand the work at a much deeper level. They kind of already know this intrinsically, but the leadership, when they're a bit removed from the day to day, might not really understand that point.
Yeah, so they got this expectation, this machine's supposed to solve everything, figure out everything, be perfect at it. Expectations is already, it's a expectation. If you got the wrong kind of expectations, that could ruin so much besides just business. I mean, even relations, all of that. I mean, but I won't keep it just strictly business here. But yeah, but that could just ruin so much. Like, you know what? I used to kind of believe that, but after playing with AI, I said, no, you got to train it and
work with it, man.
Work with it. Yeah.
And so the other thing that I'm seeing is kind of this, if we build it, they will come mindset, where it's like, let's just deploy and not be laser focused on adoption, right? And so it all comes back to ROI, right? Return on investment. We're going to spend money on this technology to deploy it at our organization. If you're not focused from the jump on adoption, you're not going to get your ROI. And the reason is it's kind of basic math, right? Like, if you're only saving a handful of people, let's call it 8 hours a week, what does that save you? That's a few $1,000s worth of like salary time, right? But if it's 300 people, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And so you need adoption to get your ROI, and you need to focus on adoption at the very outset, or when you get to the end of the road, nobody's going to use it and you're not going to get your return, right? And so, one of the critical things when you're thinking about, okay, well, how are we going to get people to adopt, is making sure that they're included in what it is we're going to do, what it is we're going to build or buy and deploy, and will that actually be helpful for you? The AI deployments right now at organizations, they are not for the C-suite. They aren't. The C-level executives, if you're doing like kind of more menial tasks that like a junior person could be doing for you, then you've got bigger problems, right? You're doing the hardest stuff that a junior analyst can't do and these LLMs can't do yet. It's for your knowledge workers. That's what AI at the workplace should really be focused on. And so in order to make sure you get adoption, you need to make sure that what you're building or buying is going to work for your knowledge workers. They need to be incorporated into the process, into the design, to make sure that when it comes out, they feel like they have some ownership on it. But most importantly, that it's helpful, that it actually helps them. And if it does, adoption will not be that hard. But if you don't focus on that, you end up buying or building the wrong thing. And they say, well, I can't use this because of X, Y, and Z. And now you're stuck with this software that isn't really going to get a return. So I would say those are probably the two biggest like mistakes I see leadership making. One, thinking they're going to have a know-it-all model, and two is not being very focused on user adoption from the beginning of the process.
All right, man. For listeners and viewers, I hope you are getting this. Maybe you're working on to start a business. This is something, have your own promotion if you want to be, the leadership, implementation, ROI. Think about these things, big picture things, okay? And for those of your business owners, I hope you're paying attention here because I have some things for the business owner. I mean, it's still weird for me to call myself a business owner. I've only been doing it for a few years. I still feel weird, but that's just me. That's my personal problem. I'll eventually get over it. but, this is all we really getting this, listeners, because this is big. This is big, and a lot of businesses are struggling. You're not alone, but you know what? There's help out there. So don't. I know some of you are afraid of AI implementation, but you know what? This is not the only disruption that's ever happened in human history. We go to the Industrial Revolution, changes medieval times. We are changed. We're human beings. We're capable of doing this, and we need to use our adaptive, more creative mindset, such as doom and gloom. AI is going to destroy us all. AI is going to take all our jobs. It's only true if you really let it, or be a dinosaur afraid of it. That's what I'm going to say. So I hope you're getting this, people, especially the leadership here. I don't be talking about the workers. Hey, you want workers, you want to become a boss eventually, get some tips right now while you're at it. So now this is actually a good time to my other question. What can we do for, CEOs that are so overwhelmed? Oh, so this machine doesn't know everything. Oh, how can I really implement this thing? I'm scared.
Yeah. Look, there's so much noise out there right now. It's impossible to keep up with. I used to read a lot of books. You can't even learn about AI in books because of the time it takes to write them and publish them. By the time they're out, they're obsolete. They're outdated. They're completely outdated. I read 2 hours every morning just to feel somewhat up to speed on what's going on with AI. You likened it to the Industrial Revolution, and I really like that analogy. In that people do lose their jobs, but in its place, way more jobs get created. And as long as you're able to adapt, then you're actually going to thrive in the medium to long term, even if there might be short term pain. That's what we've seen like 3 or 4 times now, right? The difference now is the speed. Each one is faster than the last one. This one's going to be lightning fast. Some of those previous ones allowed for enough time of generational turnover. Like I can keep doing my job as a farmer, and then my children will be using more advanced agricultural techniques as an example, right? Because it moved slow enough. And over time, it speeds up. And this one, we don't get a generational turnover. Like it's going to happen to us, right? To the workers that still need to keep working, and how they were doing it is not going to work anymore. It's going to need to change during their career. And so, to get back to the original question though, which is like, how do we make sense of all the noise? And it's overwhelming. It is overwhelming. And I have a few pieces of advice, and these really depend on kind of the size of your organization, let's say. If you're a small business, you don't have a ton of resources, you're not sitting on a bunch of capital, you stress about making payroll. I'm a small business owner. I get it. What can you do? One of the really interesting things to try is to literally book an hour on your calendar for a strategy session with ChatGPT 5. I'm dead serious about that. And sit down, and it's a meeting. It's a meeting that you schedule, and you sit down and you treat them like a consultant. They know a lot about the world, about technology, about business. They don't know about your business. So you teach it about your business, and then you ask, how do we think AI is going to impact my industry? What are some options for us strategically to implement AI? Do some research for me and find some off-the-shelf technology that might be a good fit to solve certain problems I might have, right? You would be amazed. And Elias, because I know you're using these language models a lot, but like for the folks that aren't, you will be absolutely stunned by the quality of feedback you get. It's like having access to like a high paid consultant without paying a high paid consultant. Now, if you're a bit of a bigger business, hire a consultant. And the reason I say that is because you, it is so hard to be an expert at this. It's a full-time job just to be an expert at this. This is not like some of these other new technologies where you can learn quickly and make good decisions and kind of adopt new stuff. It's moving too fast. It's too much of a moving target. There's too much noise. It's too confusing. And so bring in an expert. Now, right, if you're very small, then ChatGPT 5 might be that expert, right? Or Perplexity to do research or something like that. You're a little bit bigger and you can afford a consultant to advise and put together a strategic plan for you, which is not going to break the bank, right? 20 hours of consulting time and you would have a decent strategic plan. And then when you get to the larger companies, I typically recommend an AI team, like the A team, but an AI team, right? You find 5 or 6 cross department, cross functional folks and have them meet regularly with the goal of figuring this out. They might choose to hire a consultant themselves, but you find some of the folks that are the most sophisticated in your organization, you put them on a team and you let them go at this problem. So it was kind of like small, medium, very small, small and medium, I would say, approaches to like making sense of all the noise and like where to start, and how to make it approachable. I will add one other thing, which is that nearly every business is either on Microsoft 365 or G Suite. I can't remember the last time I ran into a business that isn't on one of those two things. They both have AI offerings. They are both cheap. G Suite has Gemini for G Suite. Microsoft 365 has 365 Copilot, and you can get a lot done with those tools. And so if you're feeling truly overwhelmed, you can start with that and just pony up the extra 15 or 20 or $50 a month for each license to give your team access safely. Because if you don't, they're using ChatGPT anyway, and they're telling it things that they're not supposed to. And that is a huge organizational risk. You have to provide tools for your team, or they're going to go out and find them elsewhere and put your data privacy and security and confidentiality at great risk, not even really fully understanding that they're doing that. And I'm seeing that everywhere. They're already using these tools if you haven't provided them alternatives.
Oh, listeners or viewers, I hope you are getting this because, yeah, that's the concern that I would have as business. Okay, I want to make sure personal information is protected and make sure you give a license to the right person that understands that you don't just put a bunch of information on AI. Especially sensitive information. You know what that is? That's demographic information, social security, medical history, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And that would have been, they see me as someone who is very protective of information in my day job. I take that very seriously. If I see even left out a little bit, I react almost like, okay, cover that, locked up real quick. That's a habit I developed. But that would have been a concern as a issue. Yeah, make sure you provide licenses. I always say to the right people that understands security that they're top mind. So just someone who's just I don't know, willy-nilly Pollyanna explorer. It's good you're explorer, but we need to explore with intention while protecting the information. I completely, I agree with that. I respect policy and all that. That can even be illegal, especially you get busted. It was documented against you. So that's something to think about, people. But I don't want to get too legalistic here, but that's just give you some of the risks and consequences, okay? But look, just implement carefully and make sure, if you provide licenses to the right people. And I think that's the only thing I could add if I was a consultant. But other than that, I'm not gonna take the thunder from our guest here because I can't anyway. So I'm just all I can say is I'm a pretty well informed consumer. That's the highest title I'll give myself. I'm not an expert. I'm not a consultant, but I say I'm a lifelong learner in technology. I think that's the best thing. You got to be a lifelong learner as well. If I'm going to just throw something practical in there that a lot of people could get. Because look what happened again. Gonna keep reminding you the Blockbuster and a Kodak example. We got it. We've done this before. We don't get out. We don't need your little silly idea. Well, look what happened because it didn't get with the times. 1950 is not 2025. It's widely different. Okay, that's about 75 years apart. If I have my math correctly. I'm not that good at it. Yeah, it's a completely different time. So if you want to operate like 1950s, you do that, but the consequences are not going to be great for you. And then that one I have to side with the employer on that one. So that's on you. That's really on you. So yeah, you got to adapt, and all disruptions is going to be a bit messy. But this is what I think. I think opportunities are just growing. Yeah, some disruptions will happen. Some jobs are coming obsolete. There's reorganization. Yeah, but all major disruptions like that starts messy. It gets better. But I do agree with you. The speed is exponentially faster. Just to put it mildly, exponentially faster. That's the difference there, and it's changing. I don't know. Feel free to correct me here, Hunter. I would say sometimes by months. Agentic AI is out. Before you know, it's gonna be something even more advanced out pretty soon. Yeah, so you got to really be a lifelong learner and stay being a lifelong learner until you decide to retire, or I don't know, you get lucky, get rich, and there you go. But what are you gonna do all that free time when you're bored and retire? Come on. You work for a bit. Come on. Retirement does kill you a bit faster if you retire early. Just saying. There's been studies on that. But, all right. Enough of my yammering. I tend to do that. What are, now let's do the opposite. Already got the negative, already got some of the solutions. What does successful implementation looks like?
First thing, we've already talked about it. Adoption. Your people are using it with intention. And it's helping them do their job more efficiently. It's boosting their productivity, or it's boosting the quality of their output. That's one that people might miss, is the output quality. Like these models are already better than us at most things. And so that's how you measure the success. But there's a key component here beyond that. So think about this temporally, meaning about time. Okay. I'll use an example of a buddy of mine. He's a patent attorney. And, I gave him a tool that he could use that was kind of safe and secure and confidential, installed locally on his laptop. And, he came back and he said, wow, this saves me 8 hours a week. 8 hours a week. It's like getting one extra workday per week. And that's great. And if you look at across the entire organization, and you could do that for 500 attorneys and they bill out at $500 an hour, then you're talking about, over $100 million in net new value creation. But what are they doing with the extra 8 hours? That is the actual key to success. Because if they adopt it and they say, sweet, I'm going to take Fridays off. All right, that may have a positive impact on your culture. Maybe helps you recruit more, etc. But that's not really going to drive growth for your business. It might. I don't want to discount that as an option, because I do think that is actually quite an interesting option. If like, hey, AI is going to give you every other Friday off. That that's pretty nice for a company. And what it's not about cutting costs so you can lay off people. Layoffs are not a growth strategy. They're not. It's healthy to reorganize and trim fat and all the rest of it. I'm not saying it's not part of business. It certainly is, but that shouldn't be your goal. How do we grow? How do we use this newfound time to grow as a business? And so let's get back to that patent attorney. Okay. Saved him 8 hours a week. What's he doing with those 8 hours? He's doing new business development. He's looking for new clients. And so if it takes him, let's call it 40 hours of effort to get one new client, then that means he's getting one extra new client every 5 weeks. And if each client value on average is $100,000, then you're talking about $1 million with your 10 new clients that you otherwise wouldn't have had in that year, right? And so what it creates is a bit of a surplus of time. And if it's wasted, that's not success. It has to be leveraged. It has to be used in a way that's aligned with the strategic vision of the company, right? Or of your own as a worker. If it, and I'll give you another example, small business, defense contractor. They're using it to help them respond to RFPs, to write proposals, right? And these are for SBIR, smaller government contracts, or 1 to 2 million per contract. And they said, we can literally double the amount of proposals we can put out next year with this. And if you have a similar close rate, you're talking about doubling your revenue in a year. That's really, really hard to do, right? And so it's both adoption plus, properly leveraging the newfound time. If you can do those two things, then you win. That's a successful implementation. And so, you've heard me say it. This is the third time now. You have to be thinking about adoption at the jump, but you also need to be thinking about what they're going to be doing with their new time.
Listeners and viewers, I hope you're really paying attention to that, because you got that newfound time. You mess around with it, just like I said, it's not growth. It's not growth. You're just fooling around with that. You can be using that for leveraging, like I say, get more clients in, or even do more high impact work, because you're already trimming down redundant tasks. Look, AI is great at doing simple, redundant tasks. I mean, it's amazing at that. Customer service, yeah, maybe basic inquiries like a bill payment, things like that. But someone's having a complicated problem, it's not there, but at least, most of them have it's not there yet. It doesn't have that competence yet, but give it time. It's not an if, it's a when. It's going to get that right. So customer service people, you're pretty safe for now. I'm just going to say it like that, and enjoy while you can, because AI is still not great. It's great for many things. It's great for art. Sure, I suck at art. AI is great for that. I could look like, I don't know, the freaking 21st century Picasso, whatever other great artists you could fill in there. Yeah, let me stroke my ego for a second with AI. Without AI, you'll think a 5-year-old created that art. So you can use AI like that. This is a more casual example. Yeah, but to Hunter's point, if you're using that newfound time for growth and leveraging, forget it. You'll be growing exponentially. That's his main point. Don't just use it just for, I don't know, fooling around, and I don't know. Yeah, just use it wisely. Just use that newfound time wisely, and use it with intentionality. So just, free time. Free time is great.
Well,
so yeah.
Let me actually add something into that. Like, most people have probably at this point heard of Google's 80-20 rule, which is when you're a Google employee, you're allowed to spend up to 20% of your time on a side project, on not your job, during your paid time there. And that's where a ton of the innovative products and services that Google ends up launching come out of that. And that's not new. 3M was doing that in the 60s. It was 15%, not 20, but it can be the source of great innovation. Fun fact, the Post-it note, one of 3M's most popular products, was developed in that 15% of innovation time. And there's a whole handful of Google products that were as well. And so, if you're talking about a day a week, right, that's about 20%. So how do you put it towards innovation? It's well spent if it's driving revenue for your company, driving net new revenue. That's time well spent. But where you see not just incremental improvements, but factorial, right? Like 10x instead of 2x, is with innovation. And so to me, the best way to spend that time is to innovate. is to focus on creativity, new ideas, the if only I had time stuff. Get that in there. And that's where you'll see not just incremental, but major kind of transformative growth.
Look at that. Using that side project time, free time for innovation. Look at that. Meshing the two together. Look at that. That's hope you was listening, people. This is really insightful stuff. Me as a extremely small business owner, just me right now. I am taking great note of this. I'm trust me, I am. And I was writing some notes even on the side because this if you implement these things, even small steps, well, I think the quicker you do it, the better. Let's just be real. Yeah, you be growing. You don't want to be stagnant, and eventually the business dies. You want to be growth. For established business, use that Amazon. For the newbies, yeah, let's just use Netflix. You use whatever examples apply to you. At the end of the day, that's what I'm going to say. And look, I'm learning a lot here. This is a comment section activity. What do you learn from this podcast? I know this is more professional than usual, but look, I've been getting more professional guests, so I'm changing a bit here. I thought that I was going to just talk politics and spirituality, but technology, look, AI implementation, it goes way, it's not just a tech thing. It spread toward healthcare, policing, education, farming, even camping, you name it. All right. AI is there. It's just, it's globally changing how we do things. And that's not exaggerating. I'm not being hyperbolic, believe it or not. Okay. So I think, like I said, the most a-hole example I could come up with just to fight this. Look, you want to be a cave person, just be Amish. You could go try that. I don't think it's going to work out well for you, but you could do that. That's up to you. You want to avoid this, but I don't recommend it because it's going to be such a shock to you that you're going to go back to the society. Most of you, at least. Okay. So learn AI, people, and take some classes on it. And you already mentioned Perplexity. There's so much tools out there. There's some free options out there, and there's some, the ones that cost some money. But either way, just, I don't know, set a block of time. You set that block of time, especially those who can't afford a consultant. Use ChatGPT or Perplexity as a consultant. That's a very good idea. So people can't afford a consultant. Consultants are expensive. Let's be clear. Big businesses could buy them. So look, I'm just summarizing all this because this is some good stuff here, people. This is some really, really good stuff. So let me wrap this up. Anything else you want to add before I wrap it up with the shameless plug-in?
Yeah, well, this is probably a good tie-in to the shameless plug. But one of the things that I hear when I give this spiel is like innovation. How? What is that? What does that mean? How do I go about innovating? And it's a very hard question to answer, right? And I don't have the answer, but I have an example. This is what we did. Okay. So it's the same model. All of a sudden, I have developers with extra time. Just because they can write code faster doesn't mean I have more client work I can just give them, right? We only have so many clients. So what do I do with this surplus? Well, I could fire them, but I don't want to do that. These are really talented people. It's hard to find good people. You want to keep your people. You want to grow. So instead, I noticed my attorney buddy, wow, that saves you 8 hours a week. What if we deployed that at your whole firm, right? We talked about that. It'd be over $100 million in net value creation. So I told my team, hey, with your extra time, we're going to build a product that sells that. And that's what the product is. It's Compass. It's self-hosted large language model plus a RAG database to allow your knowledge workers to interact with the language model safely and securely, like within your firewall, right? That was innovative. That's a different thing. It's our very first product. We were a services company. And so, it's about thinking strategically, seeing where your industry is going and making a move to be a part of that. And don't let it just happen to you, be a part of it happening, right? And so that is how we innovated, is with Compass. And so my message here is like, go out and find your compass. Like how are you going to innovate to respond to what's happening in the world of technology right now? So I'll leave it there and you can start the wrap up.
All right. I hope listeners, again, This is right here now for the shameless plug-in. Give us some support, will ya? Go to now I can't talk. barefootsolutions.com. What an interesting name. It's very digital and advanced. Yeah, barefoot. What do you think of barefoot? People like to be on the earth, anti-technology. I like the irony there. Maybe he's minimalistic.
I'm
You're
barefoot
correct.
right now.
So, okay,
Right now,
that's
I'm not wearing shoes. But it's about keeping it simple. Technology is very complex, but we have to remember it's here to help us. So we need to keep it simple. That's kind of where that came from. I would also ask, so this new thing, so Barefoot Solutions, that's the software company. Also check out barefootlabs.ai. And that's where we formed a new entity for the Compass product called Barefoot Labs. And so that's where you can find more information about that. Also, if you want to reach out to me, and Elias, I do this as a thank you to the host for allowing me to, get in front of your listeners. Email me, hunter@barefootlabs.ai. And in the first line, I want you to say, I heard you on Politically High Tech podcast. And if you do that, I promise I'll respond to you. I get a ton of cold emails. I delete most of them. But if you open the email with that, we can have a dialogue. We can chat. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a potential client, anything. You just want to see what I think about an idea you have. Hit me up and I promise I'll get back to you. So that's my shameless plug.
Hey, this podcast is capitalistic, pro shameless plug-in, especially if it's timely irrelevant. Hey, I'm all for it. So listen again, go to those sites, give him a support. Good luck. He's already providing some free consulting advice right there. I'm gonna put a link in the description, and you find it there especially if you're a visual person. Yep. I'll link everything I got. The Facebook, the Twitter, I refuse to call it X, that's and LinkedIn. Okay. So you contact him there. Okay, people? So now for my shameless plug-in, it's going to be longer than this. And Hunter, feel free to go if you really have to. You don't have to stay here for this part. So for this podcast, like, comment, subscribe, share this with someone who you believe could tremendously benefit from this. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That's the only ones I'm paying attention to. If it's a 4-star or less, give me one specific way I can improve this podcast. Just one specific. You give me even 2. I could take feedback, believe it or not. And then if it's a 5-star, give one specific reason why it was great. Okay, that's all I ask. And then you can add all the other stuff you want to add. You want to say I'm dumb and all that, I'll just ignore you. Or I'm great, I'm gonna ignore that too. I don't take empty insults or compliments very seriously. But if you could back it up with reason, I will read those and give more thought to it, okay? And then now for the 3 links. New paper, if you want politics, which I talk about without the left wing, right wing flair, straight to the point. It's a free link. Just click it. You sign up for it. You get your stocks, your national news, geopolitical news, even pop culture. Very quick. If you read everything, it's about 5 minutes long. Well, if you cherry pick, it's like 1 or 2 minutes long. I know people are very busy. You don't got time to stare at the screen all day. I get you. And then join Podmatch. Podmatch is where me and Hunter met. Okay. And it's a great, great system. It's very organized. You don't have to, create a 1-pager, that PDF is send it to the email threads. It gets messy. And if you want to update it and you got to do that again, come on. Let's be smart. Let's use a system that could just update. And okay, and you get to meet many people. If you're a podcast looking for guests, it's great. If you're a guest looking for podcasts, it solves that problem for you, okay? And it has a great AI system that matches, say most of the time matches well. There's only a few that gets a little off, but hey, no AI is perfect, but it is a great technology. Let me just be clear about that. And then for the final one, if you need a website or you want a new one, click at the link at the free website, guys. You'll be helping me. You'll be actually giving me money without breaking much of your wallet. You get a website right there. You got a team that helps you out, especially if you're not tech savvy. They'll guide you along the way and they'll provide you support as well. So that's all I'm going to say. So with this wrap up, once you complete this audio or visual journey, you have a blessed day, afternoon, or night.